Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are in the world. Welcome to RCI TV on both Twitch and YouTube, and we're back for the mini British GT Championship. Today marks round 6 of the championship, where the action continues back here at Donington Park, a circuit that has been a staple of British motorsport since its opening in 1931. Located in Leicestershire, Donington Park is famed for its sweeping curves, elevation changes, and of course the challenging downhill section of the Craner curves. I'm John Dalton, your lead commentator for today's virtual racing action, with Callum Kerrigan alongside me, Jesse Lee, of course, bringing you all the pictures from behind the cameras, and of course not forgetting our live stewards. Welcome everyone.
Good afternoon, John. Good afternoon, Jesse, broadcasting. Good afternoon to our stewards and everyone on YouTube and Twitch for round 6 here at Donington Park. I've got some mixed feelings today, John. On one hand, I'm quite sad. We've got 2 rounds left of this absolutely incredible championship. Something that we personally have been enjoying so much, and I can only imagine the people have been enjoying week in, week out here at Donington. But on the other hand, we're back at Donington. This is my favourite circuit. We've got some British weather and a 1-hour race here today. One mandatory stop, 25 seconds. Last week, 3 weeks ago, we saw Bredster absolutely dominate. I'm interested to see what we could see today, John.
Yeah, it's going to be another fantastic round, of course. Championship looking very close indeed as we jump on board briefly with a lap from the next round racing entry. That's Nicole Fox at the wheel, currently coming up to the top end of the circuit, of course, into McLean's tricky corner. Bit of an off apex. Be careful of the AstroTurf on the outside. Does retain a lot of moisture in these mixed conditions. And then, of course, the long right-hander of Coppice. Feels like it goes on forever, but jump on the power too early, you're going to be losing the rear end, and too late, you're going to be getting kind of jumped coming down into the S's, a section where, of course, we don't want to see cars go too wide because it never normally ends all too well. Again, Nicole Fox being a bit kind of tentative over the curbs, a bit cautious of the painted surfaces as they now come down into the Melbourne hairpin. A popular passing place and also a popular chaos kind of forming place as drivers edge and battle to try and make up a lot of space on their rivals. We've got an RPMS car there yielding to Fox on their lap. That's very courteous to do. And into the final corner again, Goddard's got to maximise the run out of here because it's a long drag down the Wheatcroft straight into Redgate. Nicole Fox just inside the top 10, a 1:31.292 last time by. Not their best lap yet, but still 8 minutes on the clock. Christoph Verstappen currently at the head of the field. Of course, Philip Bredster just behind him, and Benjamin Heilman in third. So it's an RCI kind of top 3 lockout so far, but of course Andy Boardman, he's creeping just behind Benjamin Heilman, and he's been a really big pain to the German driver in the 796 so far this season, Callum. Of course, we saw them go toe-to-toe at Alton last week. At Snetterton, we saw the battle resume once again. So will we see a Boardman and Heilman fight tonight, or will it be between Verstappen and Bredster as Andy Boardman goes out for another set of flying laps in the number 69?
Oh yeah, the Boardman-Heilman rivalry. Similar to what we could say the Prost Senna, the Schumacher, Hakkinen, the Hamilton and Verstappen. These two have been toe-to-toe all season long. And going back to round 3 results when we were last at Donington, Andy Boardman with a P2, a wonderful drive to seal that P2. But Heilman, if we remember, he had an issue in the pits at the start of the race. I think he disconnected and rejoined the server at the back of the field, climbed from the back of the field, managed to get a P3. Heilman could be on another charge here, and if I had to pick out an early favourite, he'd be one of mine for sure. As we see Badowski with a wonderful time to take him to P8 in the Lamborghini. Last time around, the Lamborghinis were very strong, usually quite a handful in the West. So I'm interested to see how they go as we ride on board with Yao Manzo now in the RPMS Sim Sport car, driving the Audi as opposed to some of the other RPMS cars, all opting for different vehicles as he's up and jumps right onto P7, right ahead of a few of his teammates. Qualifying is intense right now, but it's absolutely key in these conditions. Falling slightly back in the field could mean you could get involved in some lap 1 carnage, and that's not something you want to do to start your race here today, John.
Yeah, of course, the typical pinch point down into Redgate. It does get very messy sometimes on the opening lap before drivers, of course, filter sometimes too wide down through the crane of curves. Again, the old hairpin was where we saw a little bit of chaos forming last time, as some drivers were more cautious going into it than others. Aaron Jackson there just having a big slide through the S's. That's not going to help his lap time at all in the number 99 Kaiju car, but we'll see if he can seek an improvement this time by. Of course, last time we were here, it was Philip Bregster with a commanding lead over Andy Boardman and Ben dramas during the race. And of course, Yao Manzo as well finished quite well last time here, up into P5 as well. So lots of competitive drivers are here on the field tonight. And of course, Kenneth Dow, one of those drivers we see kind of towards the back end of the field, but not necessarily a slow driver by any means. Also, of course, looking to seek an improvement at the moment. Currently down in P21, Callum, coming through the S's. A big wiggle again. Lots of drivers getting caught out by those painted surfaces.
Caught out by those painted surfaces, indeed. That is a chicane, which is challenging in the dry, let alone these wet conditions. In the dry, you want to almost cut these corners, maximize lap time as much as you can, but in the wet, that's a treacherous territory to be navigating, as we're still on board here with Kenneth Dow, who I believe is up on his lap time as he navigates the difficult off camber of Goddard's as he crosses the line. Where's he going to jump to? He doesn't improve. He improves, but still sits in P21, so seeking some improvement there. 2 seconds currently off the back of the lead, but a stellar lap there from Kenneth Dow.
Yeah, it's almost a problem, isn't it? When you're kind of towards the back end of the field, the gaps are much, much larger than, of course, towards the front. Of course, Keith Withall and Ibiza Racer separated by a whopping 1 second. And again, you've got a second and a half between Racer and Byford. So it's going to have to be big margins to make up for certain kind of guys down towards the back end. Although the front end, of course, is still looking very competitive. 6 drivers tonight covered so far by a second. Of course, that's from Christopher Streppen down to Ted Edwards. And then the kind of mid-pack all relatively bunched together. I mean, there's not more than half a second or so between kind of P6, P7, all the way down to kind of P17, 18. So I think the mid-pack tonight, Callum, is probably where we're going to see a lot more of the action than obviously towards the front end. Of course, for Streppen, half a second up on Bregster. There's 0.2 between Bregster and Heilman. Again, Boardman and Heilman looking very close on 1 lap pace. Emo Plate managing to get the Lamborghini up inside the top 5. Remember last time he did a solid run through Snetterton and Tom Shipston across the line there. It's an improvement, but again, not enough to boost his position overall.
Yeah, I think he just lost a little bit of the rear end there into Goddard's. That off camber corner is just so tricky to apply the throttle correctly. Any misinput, you've lost the rear end and bleeding a little bit of lap time there, as Tom Shipston just suffered from. As we're now with Benjamin Harmon currently sitting P3 again, last to third last race around in mixed conditions. We could be looking at something special again as he's coming round into Goddard's again, just navigating that throttle pedal, getting the car turned in, getting that acceleration to try and get as good of an exit as can. It looks like it's going to be a small improvement, but not enough to improve from his P3 position. I think he's going to hop back into the pits, stick a new set of boots on, and try his best. Christopher Streppen, half a second clear of the field right now. That's unbelievable in these conditions. Almost Max Verstappen-esque from what we saw in Belgium this weekend for anyone who watched the F1. But as we saw in round 3, Philip Bregster absolutely dominated the field. He was seconds ahead, so much to the point where he picked up a drive-through and still came out in the lead, John. So even though we know the Aston and we know Verstappen strong, Bregster, you do have to think, is the favourite for this win today, which would be wonders for his championship, as he's currently sitting just behind Borden in P2 of the championship.
Yeah, of course, half a second off the pole time at the moment. But again, it's going to be across the 1 hour that makes the difference that we have here tonight. Of course, it's all very well being quick over a lap, but how many times can you repeat said lap time as Andy Boardman sets himself up through the last corner, of course, of Goddard's, taking the wide swooping line, getting much more kind of momentum by the time he reaches the line, but he's got Kenneth Dow ahead, and that could hamper him on this lap. Of course, Dow down in P23. There's about 1.2 seconds between them. Has Andy Boardman left enough of a gap, or will he find himself into the back of a Ferrari in the next few corners? Of course, coming down the Craner curves, Mustang, typically a car not well renowned for its cornering, much more renowned for the kind of straight line speed that the V8 engine, of course, provides as it begins to wind itself up the hill towards McLean's, of course, turn 7. This is going to be one that's very easy to get wrong for Boardman at the moment. First sector looking relatively easy. He's a little bit closer to the Ferrari. Could this possibly benefit him by the time he gets down to the start-finish straight? Of course, a few more cars ahead. I don't think we'll be all too phased by him, but down into the S's. Got to keep it clean. Got to keep that kind of rear end in check as he jumps on the loud pedal towards the Melbourne hairpin. I think there was a little bit of a wiggle, although running all of the track and some more to the curb, and that's Kenneth Dow. He's caught. Dow moves out the way very sensibly in the number 420 Ferrari, sacrificing his own lap, possibly not going to be an improvement, saw no point continuing, and Andy Boardman has lost a little bit of time out of the Melbourne hairpin. It can be tricky to get the power down consistently through that corner. It's always a bit of a lottery, and abandons the lap into the pit lane. No further improvement for Andy Boardman. Emo Plate also back to the pit lane. The about Roscam, Ollie Mulder, Aaron Jackson, Bruno Teixeira, to name a few. Kenneth Dow has taken the checkered flag along with Grim Lilith, but we still got some cars circulating, and this man here, Callum, Philip Roadster, looking to try and beat his teammate to the pole position. Will he do it? Time will tell.
Yeah, currently 7/10 behind from Christopher Strapen. He looked very aggressive coming through the S's there as he comes round to Melbourne hairpin. Now he's just got to navigate Goddard's, the ever so tricky Goddard's, thinking he's going to just feather that throttle in, try to point the car in the right direction, and then it's straight out to the straight as he can to the finish line. Is he going to improve? I think it's going to be a slight improvement, maybe just even. I think it was a tiny improvement, but sits in P2. It looks like Christopher Strapen is going to be our pole sitter for today, John. Philip Brescher in P2 and Benjamin Harmon in P3 with Boardman P4. These four have been going at it all season long, and once again we've got an hour long worth of action of these four battling every single corner. It's going to be a tough one to call, but if I had to go for the early one, I said it earlier, I'm going to go for a Harmon victory today.
Yeah, so it's going to be one of those things, isn't it? I mean, Benjamin Harmon looking very competitive, like you say, although battling some computer issues, we have been told tonight in the pre-show. So again, we're going to have to keep an eye on Stewie to see if he will remain in the server. Fingers crossed he will. Of course, we don't want to see anybody blighted by hardware, software failures, etc. Sometimes these things do happen. Mike Redford, your last car to cross the line tonight. Of course, we will give you a full rundown briefly of the final standing as Jesse tries to get back underway. I think he's been locked out of the garage, so I'll do it from my end. It's Christopher Streppen to the pole, Philip Bridgestone, of course, behind him, Benjamin Harmon in third, Andy Boardman in fourth, Emo Plate manages to take fifth, and Stephen Van Kampen in sixth. Ted Edwards seventh, Grim Lilith eighth, locked with Yao Manzo, possibly an Audi on Audi fight once again, and of course Theobald Roskam in P10. Of course, Tom Shipston just outside. Badowski a little bit down as well in P13. Martin Lawrence in P15. We didn't even see him join the server, so snuck in very late there. Kevin Boss just inside the top 20. He's going to be battling with Richard Phillips and Aaron Jackson along the way, and Teixeira and Redford towards the back end of the grid. Of course, Keith Whittle, your last car on the grid, rounding out 27 drivers here tonight. So it's going to be very interesting getting all 27 cars, Callum, down through the Craner curves.
All 27 cars barrowing down into Redgate through Craner curves and also navigating Old Hairpin. In the wet, Donington is a tough race to get through. And John, I'll let you run through the standings. I believe they're coming up on screen.
Yeah, of course. Championship standings on your screen at the moment, being provided by the wonderful Jesse Lee. And it's Andy Boardman at the top with 224 points to his name. In close contention, though, Philip Roadster on 210.5, Christopher Streppen on 200.5, and Benjamin Harmon on 187.5. Tom Shipston inside your top 5, although just outside, the top 10 for today's starting order, along with Marco Badowski. Yao Manzo, Emo Plate, Martin Lawrence, and Grim Lilith will round out your top 10. Of course, lots of big names on the field and lots of Monday regulars that we do see quite often here at RCI. Carlos Calatiad not with us tonight on 125 points. Matt Stevens on 110. Ted Edwards on 97. Richard Phillips and Bruno Teixeira separated by 3 points apiece. Theobald Roskam and Mike Redford also quite close in contention. 3 points between those two guys. Nicholas Keller on 62.5, Richard Whittle on 58, and Kenneth Dow on 50.5 points. Rounds out your top 20. And of course, we've got Nicholas Galloway with 50 points just outside the top 20, followed by Les Stevenson and Stephen Van Kampen, all within a couple of points. Kevin Boss also getting involved in that one with 43.5. Nicole Fox on 40, Martin Foster on 39, Ibiza Racer on 38.5, Aaron Jackson on 31.5, Mikey Turner on 20, and Chris van der Linde on 15 rounds out your top 30. It's an absolute mammoth of a board to read through, with Trevor Byford on 10.5, Keith Whittle on 8, Marco Fucuscio on 2, Ollie Mulder on 0 points so far. I think a late sign up just for this round and the last one. And of course, everybody else with a dash next to their name has signed out and will take no further part in the championship. And it was a whopping 59 drivers overall that signed up. So this could have been quite some chaos if we had 59 drivers, of course, battling into Redgate as we watch Jesse Lee down at the Melbourne Hairpin. Jesse Lee trying to show us something down at the Melbourne Hairpin, and all the cars are parked over here today, as I believe there's been some minor issue with the server config. I think it's going to be a short formation lap, so all drivers will begin their formation lap from the Melbourne Hairpin. We'll have a nice short run through into Goddard's before we get underway tonight, and Jesse is going to take you down through the field just before they all drop off the jacks and get ready to go. Just 45 seconds on the clock, and of course we've got a special livery in the field tonight to try and find. It's going to be on one of the RPMS cars. There's a little small tweak to one of their liveries, and hopefully we get time to show you that on the broadcast as well. But Jesse Lee, of course, checking out the racerci.com liveries. And of course, if you do want to get involved with us here at RCI, you can find the website there on the A pillar of Philip Bracester's car, of course, racerci.com, where you can check out all of our events anytime, day or night. If you do want to get involved with us, of course, we do still have late sign-ups for the Monday Champ. Saturday Night Owl, of course, they're rounding out this week as they head to their final round at the Nürburgring GP. Last time out, it was Lavalley from Lawrence and Flamger in Pro, with Kevin Boss and Adnan Pazina and Mark Reinhard in silver. E-tron de Jong still comfortably leading ahead in Pro. Meanwhile, it's still very close in silver between yourself, Callum Kerrigan, Adnan Pazina and Alan Asprey, with Mark Reinhardt also within striking distance. And looking at the Bathurst results, it wasn't your round to be, but we'll gloss over that one. As of course, the cars don't want to talk about it. Sore subject as we begin to get underway, of course, here at the Donington Park GP circuit. Jesse Lee taking a handy shortcut over the pit lane and should, in theory, find all the cars trailing out of Goddard's. Of course, Christopher Streppen will have the inside line towards Redgate. Of course, Philip Bracester alongside him. It's not the first time that we could see teammates come to blows, but Benjamin Harmon behind as well. Andy Boardman alongside as we get underway here for Donington Park GP for the Mini British GT Championship, and Verstappen edging ahead into the inside. Harman's made sure he's locked up the inside on Andy Boardman. He's got a fantastic run past his teammate as well, Philip Bracester, in the BMW M4, filtering into single file through the Craner curves. They go towards the old hairpin, and this is the checkup point that saw a lot of chaos last time out here, and looks like the majority of the front runners all through safely. Everybody relatively in single file, so to speak. We've got Teixeira and Jackson still 2x2 as they come up the hill. The bollards take a battering for the first time on the opening lap, and Mike Redford looking to capitalise. Ibiza Racer, though, in the background, in the grass, gets it back underway. Kevin Boss rejoining into the side of Teixeira. Teixeira had nowhere to go with Ibiza Racer on the inside. That was briefly 3 wide out of McLean's. We've got a McLaren. That's Foster out breaking himself towards the top end of the circuit. And I know he's had some hardware trouble for the past few weeks. And fingers crossed that hasn't struck him there. That could just be a driver error. But I want to say, other than a couple of cars, it looks like the 957 and the 505 lagging at the back of the field. It's a relatively safe start. We're being told, of course, a couple of drivers from the pit lane on this one. And everybody navigating through the Melbourne hairpin with 3 wide coming out of the hairpin down towards Garlards. We've got Fox to the inside, Badowski in the middle very briefly, and Lawrence towards the right-hand side of the circuit in that Bentley, and finding a gap there up the inside of Badowski. It's going to be a straight drag race down towards Redgate Corner, and Lawrence isn't on the favoured side of the circuit. Badowski, in theory, should have this defence mounted nicely, but you see Lawrence there opening up the corner to try and do the old up and under, but Les Stevenson behind having a bit of a sniff at Lawrence as well. He's looking very racy in the number 46 McLaren. As we look back from Badowski with a Bentley buried in the rear diffuser, and Les Stevenson just behind the wake of the Bentley. And I want to say, Callum, relatively speaking, touch wood, commentator's curse as always, it's a relatively clean start, but I think Jesse Lee might have something in the pocket.
I can't believe you said it. The commentator curse may strike early as we're about to go on board, which I think was a little incident, and it's Kevin Bosch just out braking himself and going wide. I think there may have been a slight bit of contact there with Les Stevenson, but John, I completely agree with you. What a start to the race. Navigating Donington is not a easy challenge as we're going on board here with what we saw in lap 1, I believe, with Bruno Teixeira and Ibiza Racer. A little bit of a touch there through the section onto the straight, and they're still battling even now. And then Kevin Boss getting involved into the Melbourne hairpin, trying to get involved. A little bit of a tap there from K-Boss, and Ibiza Racer. He spins Bruno Teixeira. That's not going to be one that's taken too kindly to the stewards. Kevin Boss just getting a bit opportunistic there with the moves, with the moves there, and sadly just making a tiny mistake spinning Bruno Teixeira. But we're going straight on board with the replay there. K-Boss utilising the poor exit from Racer, getting down the inside. Ibiza Racer looking to turn in there, which may have led Kevin to just slightly miss his braking and go into the back of Bruno Teixeira. The stewards may have had a bit of an easy job on lap 1, but the incidents are starting to pile up now as we go on to another race replay, I believe, with Ted Edwards. Is this a move into Redgate? It is a very nice move into Redgate, a little bit wide from the Mustang in front. Not quite sure who that is, but it was a Van Kampen, as I'm hearing from Jesse Lee, and Ted sees the gap, dips his car straight in there and takes the play. A wonderful move there into Redgate, John.
Yeah, Ted seizing the opportunity there on Van Kampen, and it's very unfortunate. Teixeira was almost kind of like a, kind of crossfire in the fight between Ibiza Racer and Kevin Boss. Of course, Kevin on the wetter side of the circuit probably didn't help drawing up the Mustang into the hairpin. So very unfortunate there, as we see Brewster and Heilman now go side by side coming out of the Melbourne hairpin. The circuit is certainly forming a drier line. Of course, it is damp officially in the top right-hand side of your screen. Of course, keep an eye on that one for the updated weather forecast. So, of course, drivers are going to have to manage these wet tyres throughout the stint, because again, overdrive them, it's going to be, not pretty by the time we get to the end of the race. As Callum mentioned earlier on in the broadcast, we do of course have that mandatory pit stop. That's 25 seconds fixed refueling time, of course leaving tyres completely up to the drivers, and tyres additionally will only cost you an extra 5 seconds. So a fresh set of wets could be just what you need come towards the end of the race. And of course it could even be maybe dry territory. We're going to have to see how the track forms. Of course it's going to be light drizzle consistently for the next 30 minutes, but with enough cars circulating, of course track temperature 24 degrees, we could see certainly a much more kind of drier line forming, as we see Shipston and Van Kampen sizing up moves on each other, coming through McLean's up towards the top end of the circuit. Shipston tucks back in. Of course, that's brought Nicole Fox into the fight, and with them brings, of course, Badowski just behind. Of course, Martin Lawrence and Les Stevenson have broken away a little bit from this 4-pack that is forming down towards the S's. But Callum, we've seen it time and time again. Of course, cars fighting in these small trains draws other cars into it. So again, this could be a six-way fight for what is essentially P9 overall at the moment.
Six-way fight for P9, and Badowski already making up a few places there with a move on Nicole Fox. She made a little bit of a mistake there in the S's. Martin Lawrence trying to get a bit opportunistic there and dip his nose in. The last thing you want to see for any driver is a giant Bentley in your rearview mirrors, but Nicole Fox keeping it in. Out of Melbourne here, but got the traction and made the move back on Badowski into Goddard. What a move there, and a regaining of position there from Nicole Fox, as Jesse Lee's just made me laugh, calling out that yes, Jesse, the steering wheel is in fact on the correct side for anyone who drives in the UK. Not sure about the wrong side, as we are on board here with Martin Lawrence, who's just trailing to the rear of this sort of battle pack led by Van Kampen. All he's going to want to right now, all he's going to want to see right now is them making some moves on each other, losing a bit of time, and he's going to try what he did earlier at Melbourne Hairpin, just dip his nose where it may not be invited and try to get through where he can. A tough task, but one that we've seen time and time again here from Martin Lawrence. He's been fighting with Badowski quite a lot this season. He knows how to throw that Bentley around.
Yeah, certainly plenty of time, seat time in the Bentley for Martin Lawrence, of course, coming freshly out of the World Tour in the same car as well. So lots of Bentley experience behind the Czech driver. Of course, Badowski, no stranger to the Lamborghini, running it consistently here at RCI. Throws it towards the inside of Nicole Fox. Space is given into the Melbourne Hairpin. Very sensible driving from both parties there. And of course, it does take two to tango, as they say. And Nicole Fox getting the much better run off the hairpin. Of course, the rear-mounted engine of that Porsche providing excellent traction as they go towards Goddard's. Nicole Fox able to get ahead once again of Badowski and beginning to pull away slightly towards Redgate, trying to get towards Tom Shipston, of course, who was looking at the back of Stephen Van Kampen. But again, that gap has opened up ever so slightly. Shipston has definitely lost a little bit of ground to the Ford Mustang ahead and flicking towards the front end of the field. It's still Heilmann and Bridgester locked together. Of course, Andy Boardman just in the back of shot with Emo Plate inside his kind of rear view mirror as well. So lots of drivers kind of, you know, sizing up, I would say, at the moment, Callum. They're trying to figure out, of course, what they're going to do across the next 51 minutes, where the car ahead is a little bit stronger, where their car could be a little bit weaker. And of course, Grim Lilith almost sat in no man's land at the moment, behind Emo Plate, but ahead of Ted Edwards. And of course, that themed livery does provide us with a little bit of advertisement here at RCI. Of course, it's the time when we talk about the rally at RCI, which we of course haven't touched on yet in the broadcast, and two themed liveries from Kaiju Racing on Grim Lilith's car, and of course on Aaron Jackson's car as well, the number 99, currently down in P17. It's of course to promote the new Dirt Rally 2.0 series that we are running here. Of course, we've taken a step back from EAWRC, where the club section isn't fully formed out yet. It's not quite there on where the event admins want it to be. So taking a step back, of course, to the earlier title. You can still pick it up in various marketplaces for various prices. And if you do wait for a Steam sale, it does become incredibly cheap for the Game of the Year edition. And we've already had a few rallies ongoing so far. So if you do want to get involved, head on over to the Discord, select the rally role and find the relevant channels. And you can, of course, get involved with us here, not only on tarmac, but also on the gravel. Meanwhile, Les Stevenson still latching on to the back of Martin Lawrence, or attempting to, should I say, Callum. Of course, you know Les probably better than I do in the sense of racing terms. And he's got a clear rearview mirror. He's got his sights firmly fixed on the back of that number 171 Bentley ahead.
Yeah, I do know Les fairly well. I race with him quite regularly, but I, of course, know him as Les Slurpinson, which I believe he's been dubbed his new name. So if we want to start coining that. And we've gone straight on board with the race replay here with Keith Whittle. Made a bit of mistake in the S's. We've got the Ferrari of the 957 behind, just giving it a little tap into the Melbourne hairpin. This is a bit of whiffle on whiffle action, I believe. And now we've gone on board with Keith Whittle, who's off the track. I'm not sure what's happened there. I wonder if our tools picked it up, and it has as we go on board a race replay. Just makes a mistake into old hairpin. That corner is so tricky to carry the speed. You go as far left as you dare, dab on the brakes and you're just trying to carry as much mid-corner speed, and in the dry you're almost on the power before the apex there, but in the wet, one little bit out onto that painted surface and it's danger, as Whittle has just experienced, as we go on board with K-Boss and Mike Redford with a few taps there down into the S's, a little bit too close for comfort for both of those racers. Something I'm sure the stewards will pick up. Did one driver slightly go to the right? Did one driver slightly go to the left? But either way, stewards are starting to pick up a little bit of work for themselves in this race, John. But one thing I did want to quickly touch on before handing it back, Verstappen's gone. He's absolutely gone. Checked out and sealed it. 6.2 seconds ahead of the field. This is just a casual Monday drop for him, John.
Yeah, I remember about 10-15 minutes ago when Jesse said, take a look at it while you can, and it's exactly what he meant. Of course, Verstappen off ahead in the distance. You can see there on the track map to the right-hand side, the red triangle currently navigating their way down towards the bottom end of the circuit. The Melbourne hairpin, of course, that's Verstappen, and you can see the gap. Of course, not even in the same camera shot is Benjamin Heilmann at the moment, and he's got Philip Bridgester, of course, breathing down his neck, almost acting as a rear gunner, I would probably say, for Andy Boardman. Probably Benjamin Heilmann's telling him he doesn't want that Mustang anywhere near him, because a little bit of triggering is maybe happening from the rounds, of course, at Alton Park and Snetterton, when Benjamin Heilmann spent nothing but the whole hour, near enough, staring at the back of Andy Boardman's number 69 Greased Weasel racing car. So that's going to be an interesting fight should the Mustang unlock a little bit of pace and latch onto the back of the RCI cars ahead. Of course, as you said, stewards are beginning to get a little bit busier than they were in the opening kind of few laps or so, as drivers begin to find their feet, find their gaps, and of course find their rivals on the circuit. As we catch a race replay here, this is Lawrence Fox Stevenson going into the Melbourne hairpin, and there's a touch from Fox into the back of the Bentley. Les Stevenson tries to capitalise on Fox, although can't find a way past, and Martin Lawrence is safe for another lap, but looks like he runs himself a little bit too deep. And meanwhile, at the front of the field, Philip Bridgester has found their way past Benjamin Heilmann. No more rear gunner for Heilmann. He's going to see the Aston Martin in his rearview mirror, and that's exactly what happened there. Benjamin Heilmann wide at the old hairpin, of course hampering his run up the hill, and the legs of the BMW just able to pull past and get up the inside before they went through McLaren's. Of course, minimal time loss, I would say, for both drivers there. Probably very sensible driving from the both of them, but you can already see the gap that Bridgester has managed to open up on Heilmann there, and Andy Boardman already closing the gap down, Callum. This is going to be another fight to the end for these two, I can feel.
Oh yeah, this is going to be one to watch. I'm already smirking at the thought of it. But roles reversed. Instead of Heilmann staring at the back of that GT3 Mustang getting aggravated at the straight line speed, it's roles reversed as we go aboard with a race replay. It looks like a mistake here from Trevor Byford. Maybe a bit of a rinse repeat we saw from Keith Withall coming out of the old hairpin, just running it a bit too deep, too much corner speed, going onto the painted surface, and sadly going onto the grass as we go straight on with Kenneth Dowes a bit on the outside there, battling with Bruno Teixeira and Ibiza Racer. 2 paces lost that lap. Jesse Lee just gave to us. I'm wondering if the tool will pick up that replay for us, maybe a mistake, or just outbraking themselves into Goddard's and losing the paces there. It's so easy at Goddard's. I feel like a bit of a broken record talking about it, maybe because of my absolute detest of that corner. As we go on board, Les Stevenson and Martin Lawrence battling here into McLaren's. Les with the inside, Martin trying to hold it on the outside onto the painted surface, but keeps it on track. No step out the back end, well controlled there, and just had the better drive on that outside line. And Les there with a big rear end slide. He won't get the run into the S's. Well defended there by Martin Lawrence, but prior to this going on board here, we did see Nicole Fox behind Martin Lawrence, so somewhere on this lap Nicole Fox has gained that position back as well, John. There are things happening up and down the field here as we've got the Lambo of Richard Phillips running a bit wide. I'm not sure if he was going for the move there on Mulder, but either way, looking for something into the old hairpin, John.
Yeah, absolutely. So Richard Phillips looking very confident in the Lamborghini so far today, and of course the pit window has just opened. Of course 30 minutes for drivers to come down the pit lane to complete their stop. Of course the only requirements we have here today is a fixed refueling time of a litre. So whether you add a litre or, 40 litres, 50 litres, however much you want to add, of course, that will still net you 25 seconds in the box. Of course, tyres are an extra 5 seconds as we see the first of the pitters here. Aaron Jackson coming down the lane, and that's the alternate Dirt Rally 2.0 livery we spoke about earlier on. Of course, a famous Seat livery being brought on to the Audi. As Tom Shipston makes up the position on Stephen Van Kampen, that's going to have happened through the old hairpin. I'd almost say Van Kampen's probably run it wide. He has over the grass. Shipston much tidier, and you can see there the momentum that you have coming up the hill is so crucial, because Tom Shipston came from quite a way back and managed to get the RPMS Ferrari through on Van Kampen. Meanwhile, we've got Ted Edwards splitting the two Audis of Grim Lilith, and Yao Manzo. Of course, those two had a fantastic fight at the Nürburgring Nordschleife flyaway round that we of course had in the middle of the season, and Ted Edwards, Race Ventura number 8 Mustang, splitting them perfectly. And just looking at the racing line, Callum, it looks like a lot less spray is now coming off these cars. It's certainly looking much drier than it was, of course, when the green flag dropped some 13 minutes or so ago. So could we see potentially some drivers dabbling in towards the dry tyre window? Of course, when we get about 28 minutes down the road, when the pit window eventually closes, maybe we'll start seeing some yellow sidewall Pirellis coming out.
We could see some yellow sidewalls indeed. Going on to the topic of strategy, John, you spoke earlier about the fixed time of 25 seconds, but tyres being optional. I think I speak on behalf of everyone. Everyone wants tyres this race. These conditions in the wet tyres, they are going to be crying, absolutely screaming at the drivers, overheating. These conditions are painful to drive in. I actually feel quite comfortable here sitting in the comms booth with you, John, because I don't want the stress of having to navigate this track with red hot wet tyres. But with the heat, generates more heat onto the track. We can see this dry line forming. Towards the end of the race, we could see something, and we've got Badowski getting past Van Kampen as well. We seem to have caught up quite quickly. Maybe another mistake for Van Kampen, or being a bit too cautious there through the old hairpin potentially, as he made the mistake on the previous lap. Either way, we may see that a bit later on. Nicole Fox, though, in the background, still holding off Martin Lawrence, and Shipston, as you said earlier, set free now, already gaining on this pack, ready to chase Yao Manso. 4.2 seconds he's got to gain, but with the clear air, I think the Ferrari's got a bit of pace in that today, John.
Yeah, certainly so. Ferrari looking, of course, very strong across the calendar. We've seen Carlos Calatayud, of course, bustling towards the front end of the field as well. As we see Ibiza Racer and Bruno Teixeira getting very close again down in the into the Melbourne hairpin. Of course, GTR on M4 action, and a flash of the lights from Teixeira. He's not happy with something that's gone on, of course, flashing his dissatisfaction to Ibiza Racer. Let's have a look. Where has this happened? So this is down at turn 7. There's a little bit of a bump between Teixeira and Racer. That's kind of no harm, no foul. I would take that as such. Of course, the old up and under through turn 8 as we hit another race replay, this time down into the Melbourne hairpin. Racer with a big send up the inside, struggling to get the M4 stopped. There's a little bit of paint traded between the cars, and Ibiza Racer becomes the more victorious car, should we say, over the two of them at the moment. But again, stewards may be looking into that. Meanwhile, Ted Edwards and Grim Lilith side by side through the S's, and look at the amount of time lost. Manzo is now trying to get involved. There's a block from Grim Lilith that stops Manzo getting involved. Maybe Manzo thought twice about this as well, because it's not a wise move trying to get involved with two cars that are fighting. You're almost going to be the unseen person in the fight, and Audi on Audi action now down in towards Goddard's, of course. Yao Manzo to the inside, Grim Lilith around the outside. Ted Edwards managing to escape up the road ever so slightly, and it looked very close coming out of Goddard's there as they begin the drag race down the start finish straight. Yao Manzo with a better exit manages to get the car overlap, move sign sealed and delivered by the time we get to the breaking point of turn 1. But again, that was another momentum-based fight. It was the run hampered through the S's, Callum, that of course brought Manzo into that. And that's exactly what I said in qualifying. You do not want to see cars going side by side. And let's catch a race replay. Grim to the outside, Ted to the inside. Of course, there was a little bit of a bonk. Traction controls are kicking in. People are over the grass. There's lots of time loss. and that's exactly what brought Manzo into the fight. And now the Portuguese driver can set their sights onto the back of Ted Edwards. Grim Lilith, of course, being the big kind of loser in that fight, going down 2 positions from P6. But if I know Grim, they're not going to give up on this one, Callum. They're going to fight until the very end.
Yeah, Grim will be fueled up and wanting to get those places back for sure. A massive well done to Yao Manso, capitalising on that fight. That's exactly what you want to see, the 2 people ahead of you just squabbling, so you can just creep up, make those moves there, and for those two cars, the 2 Audis, to be side by side for as long as they had with no contact. Incredible driving from them both, it has to be said. Going to what you said about TC, I just want to make a comment. In true rally promotion fashion, Grim Lilith has committed to 0 TC, he's told me, for the entire championship. So for him to get the exits he did there with 0 TC on a controller, which we have to say mandatory every single race, he is on a controller. Absolutely unbelievable driving from Grim, and he's going to be chasing back Yao Manso as both of them in that fight, even being side by side for as many corners as they had. Didn't fall back there from Ted. Still 6/10 Yao Manso is behind Ted Edwards. So I think this could be one to look for the race. There's not as much pace disparity as you'd probably see from someone making a move like that. Yao Manso wants this position. He's hunting down for that P6, John.
Yeah, he's definitely hungry, isn't he, to catch Ted Edwards again. Another driver that kind of doesn't give up, has real grit and determination, running wide over the painted surface of McLean's, getting very sideways indeed. That's going to lose a little bit of time, and we see in the background there Grim sliding up through Coppice as well. And Grim, I think even the bravest of drivers electing for 0 TC has turned on 1 click for today. There's no orange light on the dashboard of the Audi. So again, not committing fully as Ollie Mulder gets very sideways, nearly into the door of Richard Phillips in the number 22 RPMS Lamborghini. And side by side, they will go down into the S's. The overlap from Phillips is just enough. Ollie Mulder slots in behind, but gets a little bit of a cleaner run through the S's, so sets himself up for the hairpin. Richard Phillips sees it coming a mile off already to the inside. Is the Lamborghini covering off the apex? Going to make Mulder go the long way around. Tries to do the old up and under once again, the old switcheroo. And again, Mulder with better drive off the corner. Phillips plants it to the inside of Gollard's, the last of the late breakers. The drier line, of course, to the inside ever so slightly. The RPMS Lamborghini fends off once again, but will we see Mulder's Aston come back this time? I don't think we will. I think Phillips has done just about enough there, and a little flash of the lights from Mulder to say I'm coming. He sends it to the inside of Redgate. That's the wetter part of the circuit. It looks like just about gets it stopped on the anchors. Phillips tries to go the long way around, although not the favoured line through Redgate. Mulder up the inside, through the crane of curves they go, and Ollie Mulder now up into P15 for Unicorns Shoot Lasers.
Yep, and a move that was set up almost half a lap ago there, just dipping your nose in, displacing the line of Richard Phillips to try and get in to make that move happen, constantly making sure Richard Phillips was offline to ensure that move that he made into Redgate, that late braking move to seal the deal. Brilliant move there from Ollie Mulder. And Richard Phillips probably saying, Randy, please more speed right now. Is what he wants from his Lamborghini as we jump on board with Van Kampen. And as we do ride on board with Van Kampen in this Nicole Fox fight, I've noticed a few penalties coming through. Not that much. You'll see on our timing screens that we've got a 5 seconds for K-Boss, but going through the stewards report, they've confirmed that they're all caught up, and there's not actually that much to report. A number of warnings, a number of race incidents for all the contacts we've seen, but the 5 seconds coming for the car number 31 for the contact with car 11. That was the incident we saw with the Ibiza racer move, which led to K-Boss just tapping into the rear of the Bruno Teixeira cars. We actually just rode on board. Oh, it's actually for this one. Apologies, I've got it completely wrong there. It was for a bit of a sloppy rejoin or a poor rejoin there from the number 31, which led to a little bit of a knock into the number 11 of Bruno Teixeira. I can agree with the stewards there, the thought process there. Obviously that rejoin was on the edge, and any more of a contact there, and that could have led into a big accident. But only K-Boss here currently with the 5 seconds. It's been relatively clean, relatively quiet in the stewards box so far. But with 35 minutes to go, a damp track is still very much to play for as we jump on board with Jan Manzo. Exactly what I said, hunting down Ted Edwards, now 4 tenths, John.
Yeah, still chomping at the bit on the rear end of the Mustang is Yao Manzo in the 222 RPMS Simsport car. And just touching back on the steward's reports, of course, there's lots of warnings for kind of, minor contacts, which, again, is expected in the wet, of course, as drivers really do exercise the limits and try to find where they can really push. As we see Richard Withall looks to the outside briefly of Ibiza Racer before being covered off through the S's in the number 957 Ferrari. And just a note on Richard Withall, his game actually crashed on the grid, managed to get back in very quickly for a pit lane start and finding their way back up the field. Of course, the 957 currently in P19 after starting from the pit lane. So again, almost a Benjamin Heilman-esque comeback, should we say, this time out for Richard Withall. And Ibiza Racer outbraked himself at Goddard's. It's a broken record again, Callum. It's so easy to do down at Goddard's. It's that fraction too late. The downhill momentum just kind of carries you into the apex, and it's very, very hard to scrub speed. As we see 2 more cars down the pit lane briefly, Jesse showed us, of course, Grim Lilith and Stephen Van Kampen. That's 2 more cars to tick off the list on the left-hand side. And of course, if you're trying to keep track of who has met the pit stop requirements, you'll notice some drivers have an orange 1. Some drivers, of course, have a fully green box next to their number, and that indicates, of course, the number of pit stops still to make. So anybody with a green square has cleared their pit stop. Keep your eye on them, because they'll be shuffled out of contention and coming back up the field. Of course, anybody with the orange 1 is still yet to serve their stop. So again, it can give a bit of a false illusion as we get towards the latter half of the pit window. Some drivers you don't quite expect to see leading races do manage to filter their way up very slowly as people peel off into the lane. Meanwhile, Tom Shipston coming under pressure, this time from Marco Badowski. Of course, he was trying to set his sights to the back of Jan Manzo ahead. He has closed up the gap ever so slightly to a second. Badowski, a late decision there into the pit lane. The number 29 Team Monkey Racing effort will come down the lane. That will free up Martin Lawrence to have a go now at Tom Shipston on the circuit as he gets the car stopped nicely in the box. Of course, he'll be stationary there for the 25 seconds plus maybe 5 if he decides to take the tyres. And like you said, Callum, I assume that everybody is going to be taking a set of tyres here tonight. As you said, Callum, of course, the damp nature of the circuit, the much kind of drier line that we do have at the moment forming, these Pirellis aren't going to be too happy with the conditions presented tonight.
I absolutely agree. I do think everyone will be taking tyres, and I think the people that are blinking now, blinking a touch early, may have it spot on here with the tyres screaming for life. As we've theorised with these conditions, getting a new set of boots in and pumping in some lap times is going to be huge for an undercut today. Albeit, you're sacrificing a bit of lap time later, as we see Martin Lawrence trying to sneak a little move there into Tom Shipston, but Tom not having none of it, not even remotely phased by that giant Bentley in his rear ring. Thinks, no, I'll just take my normal braking point at my normal line. As you can see, Martin Lawrence with that straight line speed, even going into Melbourne hairpin. Let's see what his traction's like. No, the Ferrari's just got it, traction there, going into Goddard's. But, yep. Oh, we've got a stop go 30, John. We've got one already. Maybe a little bit of a speeding in pit lane as we see Tom Shipston diving into the pits. But in these wet conditions, you might have only practiced your pit entry in the wet. With these conditions, a little misinput on that brake, and we will see what Marco Badowski has just been victim to. A stop go 30. That's excessive speeding in the pit lane. May have missed his braking point by an absolute mile off, but him running phenomenally this race in that little battle pack that you saw, Lawrence Shipston, Nicole Fox. He's not going to be too pleased with this one, John.
Yeah, very unfortunate there for Marco Badowski. Of course, nobody to blame but himself on that one. Of course, the sole pilot aboard the car at the moment. And like you say, maybe the pit entrance was practiced in wetter conditions, maybe drier conditions. Maybe Badowski was in second gear. The pit limiter didn't engage when he, of course, hit the button. So many factors at hand. But of course, no one else to blame but himself. So he'll trundle down the pit lane, probably stop go 30. That'll be a considerable time loss for the number 29, and unfortunately in these shorter sprint rounds, just not able to get that time back at all. As your race leader down the pit lane as well, Christopher Streppen has just trundled past us beneath the commentary box, and of course the cameras forever helpful at Donington, as always, in the pit lane. He'll come down and stop onto the marks, get the car up, of course, get the fuel chucked in, and of course Brewster has just passed through for the provisional race lead until they, of course, have to make their pit stop as well. Benjamin Harmon, again, Andy Boardman, Emmo Plate, to name a few, will probably cycle up a few positions, so expect to see the 747 Aston tumble down the order ever so slightly. And Andy Boardman has dropped off the back considerably of Benjamin Heilman. That's 3.7 seconds. If you remember, it looked like Boardman was catching the 796, but alas, not to be anymore. And Yao Manzo still on to the back of Ted Edwards, number 8. Again, probably waiting for the mistake to happen if it does, or waiting for those Mustang tyres to drop off a cliff, as has been the discussion amongst a few communities at the moment. The weak point, of course, the Mustang being the corners and the tyre wear. So again, coupled with the wet weather, that's not going to be all too handy. Teixeira also down the lane. With him brings Ibiza Racer. Of course, those two coming to blows on the circuit. Fingers crossed they can get that one sorted out in the pit lane and back underway. But top 10 still yet to pit. Of course, Kevin Boss will serve the additional 5 seconds during his pit stop, so that penalty will be cleared off. And we do have a few more penalties rolling in. It's between the 808 and the number 11. Of course, that's Ibiza Racer and Teixeira. Both incidents deemed racing incidents, minor contacts. And again, between the 115 and the number 8, of course, that was Grim Lilith. And of course, Ted Edwards through the S's earlier on. That was deemed racing incident. Once again, hard racing. And provisionally, Andy Boardman in the number 69 Greased Weasel car goes to the lead. Callum, of course, Brewster and Heilman also down the pit lane this lap.
Yeah, but it looks like everyone is now just picking their point, or their moments to take their pit stop. I do think that the people that pitted early could see great improvement here, as we know with Brewster and Heilman in at the same time. So no gains there. But let's see if anyone can be gained during the pit stop. As we're riding on board here with the RPMS SimSport car, I believe they've got a special livery for us today, John. Obviously, we've been calling them by their rightful name, Randy Please More Soup, and there it is. A little graphic here for the commentating team with someone begging for soup. That is, that's really good. I really appreciate that. It's obviously something that we've been talking about for the whole of the season. John, you can tell the story better than I can, but from what I understand, someone was theorizing what RPMS stood for, and someone came up with Randy Please More Soup. Obviously, it stands for, well, I think it's Richard Phillips. I can't remember the second part. Oh my god, I've let the team down there. But John, you can explain the story far better than I can.
I say we've been calling it Randy Please More Soup for forever and eternity. It's almost stuck in your head. That's the official name of the team. Of course, it does stand for Richard Phillips, Matt Stevens, of course, 2 drivers in the RPMS camp. SimSport, during the World Tour 24 Hours, of course, that we hosted just a few months ago at the Red Bull Ring, nearly on pace. You can go back over, I believe, my Twitch stream. Somebody may have clipped it, I'm not too sure at the moment. But of course, we were theorizing, what does RPMS stand for, kind of in the middle of the race, you know, those random thoughts you have during endurance races to kind of occupy yourself. We had a few silly suggestions thrown out, and then I believe it was Fabian Schmidberger that, of course, there's a name that, of course, you'll recognize from the early days of RCI once again, threw out the name of Randy Please More Soup. The RPMS camp liked it so much, and of course we liked it so much here on the broadcast, that it's almost stuck. It kind of gets Jesse Lee's back up a little bit. He says stop calling it that, but again, we can't help. And now officially it's of course on the car. So great to see, of course, 2 teams nearly on pace and RPMS kind of coming together to make a kind of new form of community law, should we say. Again, it's a good feature. They're good sports. They're playing along with the joke, and yeah, kudos to whoever in the RPMS camp designed that kind of graphic design for the roof of Richard Phillips' car. But again, it's brilliant. It adds a little quirk to ACC, and there's all sorts of little Easter eggs on people's liveries that we don't always see, we don't always notice. But again, we were given the heads up from the guys on that one. On, of course, what was happening, and to look out for it on tonight's broadcast. I spoiled it a little bit in practice. I went and had a look down at the car while it was on the pit lane. Callum, you were quite late, of course. You left the surprise until we saw it on the broadcast, and I think that's the best way, of course, to see your true reaction of the Randy Pleasemore suit meme. And yeah, it's brilliant all round as we see contact between Ted Edwards, and that's one of the Whittles. I believe that is Keith Whittle in the 157. That's going to hamper Ted's progress somewhat in the fight, of course, with Grim Lilith, and I believe Yao Manzo from memory, who has just come down the pit lane this time by, and I think it was just a little bit of kind of not alertness from the 157 and just kind of misjudged the braking point, found the back of the Mustang. Very unfortunate indeed on that one. And of course, Martin Lawrence there, provisional race leader. Yao Manzo, of course, down the pit lane. They will shuffle back down the order, so keep your eye out from where Manzo comes out in relation to Edwards after, of course, that incident. And I'm sure, again, Callum Stewards will be looking at that one, so we'll try and bring you an update. Meanwhile, there's a yellow flag out for the 505. That's Trevor Byford off at the top of the circuit. Back to pit lane he goes. Let's catch a race replay of what happened here. So coming out through the old hairpin, coming up, of course, towards McLean's. I'm going to put money on dropping a wheel on the exit, gassing it up a little bit too early and just finding his way to the right-hand side. Over the AstroTurf he goes, and exactly what happens there, into the inside wall. I've done that many a time. I'm very experienced here in the realm of Donington spins, and quite conveniently, Callum parking it exactly on the fire point for the marshals to retrieve the car off the circuit. So you couldn't have asked for a better place to put an entry post, could you?
No, you couldn't, and just like you said, that kind of spin there at McLean's is almost a rite of passage here at Donington Park. You have to do it 5, 10, maybe 15 in my case, to learn from it, and maybe even sometimes not learn from it. So very unfortunate there from Trevor Byford. As we're running on board here with a dominant Christoph Verstraper, I just wanted to say, John, to you viewing that Randy Pleasemore suit car before the race, I just want to say I'm not angry, I am disappointed.
I will hang my head in shame, and I will try not to spoil any more Easter eggs.
I forgive you. I forgive you.
Thank you very much, Callum. Christopher Streppen, of course, out front, fastest lap of the race to his name. Martin Lawrence has just come down the pit lane to serve their mandatory stop. So trundling down and, of course, off the line into the merge lane. It's a bit of a tricky merge here, as we almost caught the end of that there with Lawrence and another car. And Benjamin Heilman losing big time to Philip Brewster as Lawrence finds himself in the thick of it with two Audis. That's Yao Manzo and Grim Lilith behind. And Lawrence has managed to come out in P8 just ahead of these two. And Manzo with the hotter tyres, bumping Lawrence down into the old hairpin. That opens up the door for Grim Lilith up the inside of Manzo. Round the outside, he's going to attempt of Lawrence as they come up to the top end of the circuit. Grim just doesn't have the legs that the Bentley has up the hill and tucks back in between Lawrence and Manzo, but that could have gone much, much worse, Callum. But Manzo on hotter tyres, Lawrence fresh out the pit lane, still trying to build a little bit of temperature, and Grim looking very, very racy behind Martin Lawrence. And that's two names I thought I would never see come to fight on a circuit.
Yeah, Grim hungry for this position. Just theorising, I haven't checked the times yet, but Martin Lawrence was fighting with Nicole Fox and Shipston before the pit stops. He's jumped up into P8 in the order. Maybe didn't take tyres, but I've noticed up and down the field, Grim, first one to blink, was trailing quite far behind the Manso and Ted pack as he dropped places after being passed, but has let them both in the pits as we see the final couple of people coming into the pits now. Martin Foster, and Kenneth Dow still yet to pit. But I theorise Martin Lawrence might not have taken tyres here, therefore they are going to be screaming. But the Bentley is the notorious tyre whisperer. Maybe he can hold on here and make an absolute cracking call on strategy here not to take tyres. Ted Edwards losing a couple places in the pits, and from that tap that he got from the Whittles, he's going to be hungry to get these Audis back. He's going to be very hungry to get these Audis back.
Yeah, absolutely. So just looking down the pit stop times, as you mentioned there, of course, lots of drivers in the late 50s, so 57, 58 at the front of the field. The first time we see over a minute is Tom Shipston, so it could be on a fresh set of Pirellis down in P11, of course, losing a little bit of time compared to everybody else. The next car we see up into the minutes. We've got Les Stevenson on a minute flat, Kevin Boss on a minute 1, but of course 5-second penalties for him as Jan Manzo and Grim Lilith. Once again, this is a repeat almost of the Nürburgring, going toe to toe down into the S's. Manzo to the outside very cautiously gives Grim the inside. It's not a pretty kind of corner to go side by side in, and Ted Edwards is going to capitalize down into the Melbourne hairpin. The grunt of the V8 Mustang brings with him, of course, Stephen Van Kampen in the background. Manzo goes wide, Edwards does the old up and under. It's now going to be a drag race down towards Goddard's. Of course, Manzo will have the inside line, the favoured line, and Ted Edwards tucks back in. Can't get the drive off the hairpin, but Manzo almost too deep into Goddard's. Van Kampen also looking very tidy, and Manzo's wide over the curb. There's a hop, a jump from the Audi. That's going to hamper a little bit of progress down into Redgate, and Ted Edwards still looking. He's praying, he's prowling on the back of the Audi, looking for that mistake to try and capitalize to put himself back up into P8. And of course, if he opens the door to one Mustang, it could be two Mustangs with Stephen Van Kampen within shooting distance. Just looking back down towards the pit stop times, Bruno Teixeira, minute 5. There's a big sideways moment from Stephen Van Kampen. Manages to hold onto it in the number 35. Jesse can't believe it. Let's get a race replay on board so we get to see the driver's arms, of course, on the left-hand side. Brakes on his usual point, hits the curb, and that's where the back end loses it, claws onto it, down to first gear, back on the power, up the hill he goes. Lots of momentum lost, big temperature built into those tyres, and unfortunately Van Kampen will lose a little bit of time. But Callum, I think that's maximum style points for Jesse Lee. He's holding up the 10 card. He's loving what's going on at the moment.
What is with these Mustangs and style points? We've seen it almost every race. The tank slappers that are coming out of these Mustangs because of the grunt they have in those engines, and they just get caught every time. I'm thinking back to Kevin Boss saving some absolute wonder saves during the Nords Raceway round. As we get on board here, Ted Edwards trying to have a crack at Yao Manso once again. Again, frustration probably looming in as he's overtaken a few of these Audis once before, but he finds himself behind them. As you can hear it in my voice, John, I'm just laughing. How did he save that?
Yeah, absolutely excellent display of driving from Stephen Van Kampen. Somehow kept it pointing the straight and narrow way. Of course, maybe his hardware something to thank on that one. Of course, direct drive wheels, of course, being a saviour in their reaction terms. I remember when the T500 wheel was kind of the revolutionary wheel on the market at the time, many moons ago. And now, of course, with these direct drive units reacting almost instantly, that's maybe what might have saved Van Kampen there. And Manzo's got big understeer going into McLean's, can't quite hit the apex, and Ted is sniffing. He's feeling a weakness. He knows he can get that Audi R8. He's just biding his time, I would say, as we see a flash of a yellow flag. That looks like the number 95 maybe coming out of Goddard's. I'm not sure what's happened there, but of course hopefully we will manage to get a bit of a race replay. That's Mike Redford in the MYK racing car, and he's already backwards by the time we catch the replay, reversing out onto, of course, the national circuit cut through, where of course the S's, you turn kind of straight and right and you come out on the start finish straight, those of you that aren't familiar with Donington. Mike Redford finding his way onto the escape road all by himself, no contact log there, so very unfortunate. Maybe just caught out by the wetter part of the circuit. Maybe the car is just not happy on that McLaren currently, but Manzo looks like he's got the last lap back under control a bit. He is pulling out a bit of a gap to Ted Edwards behind, and Stephen Van Kampen, despite the massive slide, still looks like he's got good pace in the number 35 Mustang behind, of course, Grim Lilith ahead of shot there in the number 115. Fantastic race so far. Of course, Lawrence has managed to pull out the gap, 4.2 seconds. We saw those two, of course, nose to tail going toe to toe earlier on. And a big slide from Lilith ahead, dips a wheel in the grass. I'm trying to make out how much momentum has been lost, but that certainly brought Manzo and Edwards back into the fight as we ride on board with the Kaiju racing car. Of course, the parody sponsors of Castrol down to the bottom and across the rear wing of that one for the Dirt Rally 2.0 events that we are hosting. Of course, get yourselves in the Discord for that one. Find the relevant channel and get involved with some rally action. But Manzo sizing up Grim, getting ever closer. Callum, this is almost a repeat of what we saw at the Nürburgring. Those two, of course, thoroughly enjoyed the fights that they had, but this time they've got Ted Edwards thrown in for good measure as well.
Absolutely, John. I'm getting a bit of deja vu, and I'm absolutely loving it as the Manso just out-braking himself, having to avoid Grim there in the braking zone. Ted seeing the gap and going for it. We've got a great view of this little battle into Goddard's. Ted going a bit wide, so Manso keeps the place, but that's very wide. That may bring Van Kampen into this battle. These three and Van Kampen getting involved are giving it to us this race. This has been absolutely phenomenal racing from these three. As I'm sure we'll see for the rest of the race. I just want to quickly, while we've got time and hopefully these three calm down a bit, just jump onto the stewards' incidents. We've had a few more come through. We've got 2 5 seconds for the number 808. You can see 10 seconds there for Ibiza Racer, 1 for forcing another car off the track, and 1 for a blue flag infringement. We've also got a 5-second for the car 157. That was with the incident with Ted Edwards. 5-second penalty for him as we go with Ibiza Racing. I believe that's Imo Plata, who may be lapping Ibiza Racer there. So that's not something the stewards are going to take too kindly to. Obviously, if you are being lapped, it's probably best and the smartest for your race just to pull over, let the faster car go through, and maybe even utilise that opportunity to follow them and try to get some new lines, figure out their braking zones and find some lap time. That's definitely something I do as best as I can before they inevitably drive off in front of me. But yeah, the stewards are going to take not too kindly to that one. I've just seen another red flag flash up there for the 808 on the exit of Redgate, as this trio has now well and truly become a four-pack here. Fight for P7 still very much on.
Catch a race replay here with Ibiza Racer doing some lawn mowing for us here at RCI. We'll let the MSV group know that we've cut the grass coming down the Carrera curves, and very good lawnmower is the BMW M4, as we've learnt tonight on the stream. Ibiza Racer there finding new and alternate lines, as you said there, Callum. Maybe trying to explore the shortcuts that we have here at Donington. Meanwhile, Mike Redford and Teixeira and Kenneth Dow all find themselves in a three-way fight coming down into the S. There's a flash of the lights there from Dow. I'm wondering if there's a little bit of history kicked off before we've caught this fight. A good run there from Mike Redford through the S's. Up the inside of Teixeira's GTR he goes. Who will get the car drawn up first? We've seen a lot of kind of danger down at the Melbourne hairpin. Mike Redford runs too deep. Teixeira up the inside says thank you very much, and Kenneth Dow brings himself back into this one as well. And all the meanwhile, of course, P2 just behind there. Philip Bradestone, front row seat of the fight. And I think very sensibly there, Dow got way out of the way of Bradestone. And of course, now it's going to be the awkward one, isn't it, for Teixeira and Redford? You don't want to surrender too much time or positions. But again, you don't want to hold up a faster driver that's behind you, because inevitably they will become frustrated and then start making desperate moves, which will, of course, lead to calamities later on down the line. And single file down through the Carrera curves. Seems like Mike Redford has pulled out the gap on Teixeira, which should make it much easier for Bradestone to find their way through. Meanwhile, of course, you said Van Kampen was being brought into this one. Certainly so. We've got 4 rings and a prancing horse in the form of the Mustang. Of course, not the Ferrari in this case. It's Audi on Audi, Ford on Ford, who will be the prevail come the next 11.5 minutes of the race as they come down through the Carrera curves. Jan Manzo looking very close towards the back end of Grim Lilith, almost kind of bump drafting down the Carrera curves as they go. Ted Edwards, good run there, getting involved late on the brakes into the old hairpin. Lots of inside curve, trying to use the momentum of the Ford. He is wide indeed. That's going to allow Van Kampen the run up the hill. Ford on Ford this time down into McLean's, and I think Ted has done just about enough to fend off, but it's getting very scrappy, isn't it, Callum, as these tyres begin to fall off. Fuel loads, of course, falling out. Drivers get this false sense of security that they can go faster when, in fact, the Pirellis underneath them aren't in the healthiest of conditions, and braking points begin to change. Kind of apexes a little bit kind of weirder than they used to be, and side by side once again into the S's. Have they not learned from the big time loss the first time they did this? They haven't. Ted Edwards sees the opportunity. He's going to get the run up to the right hand side. Grim Lilith covering off excellently into the Melbourne hairpin. It's nearly 3 wide with the Mustang splitting the middle of the 2 Audis. They're still side by side as they run out of the hairpin down towards Goddard's. Manzo to the inside. Grim is giving a little bit of a squeeze, but Manzo just about has the overlap, and be very careful. Both cars having to stand up. Ted Edwards now trying to get up the inside. This is fantastic racing. It's a straight drag race down to Redgate. Grim Lilith on the inside. Van Kampen looks to try and make it 3 wide. Ted Edwards too late on the brakes. Manzo with a half lazy spin across the front of Van Kampen. Grim Lilith prevails out front. They go. Stephen Van Kampen gains 2 places. Ted Edwards, the big loser in the fight, down a few places as well. And Yao Manzo nearly turned in Redgate. I'm going to take a moment just to get my breath back there. That was absolutely chaotic, Callum. I don't even know what just happened amongst these 4.
Yeah, John, you take some time, gather some oxygen over commentating that. I don't even know how your brain could process what was going on, let alone articulate that. As Ted Edwards, as you said, is a big loser, but right on the back of Yao Manso again, being like, may have lost 1, but I'm ready to take 2 back. This is a phenomenal battle for P7. Oh, meanwhile, we went from 3, we've gone to 4. Is Van Kampen trying to have a look up the inside there? Yao Manso going defensive into the S's. We've gone from 3, we're at 4, and Tom Shipson's right behind to make this a 5-way fight here for P7. Nicole Fox in the distance there, probably thinking, go on, a couple more fights, get me involved. Why not? Incredible racing here, John, during the later stages of this race.
Yeah, fantastic racing and hard racing at that. I mean, every driver kind of giving tit for tat, opens the door there. Tom Shipston gets a snout up the inside. You've got to remember, though, Tom Shipston's pit stop, Callum, was 5 seconds longer than the rest of the field. So logically, he is on a fresh set of wet tyres. So his tyres may be in slightly better condition than these guys ahead, but it's all very well catching. Can he get past? Looks like he gets a good run off of Redgate, although Ted Edwards does block. I think I saw maybe a tap of the brakes from Shipston as he checked up, and meanwhile Van Kampen is onto the back of Lilith now. It's almost a role reversal, isn't it? One Mustang's been switched for another. Of course, Yao Manzo failing in the background now, just trying to catch back up to the back of Lilith. Again, the S's not an ideal passing place. I'd like to see the guys kind of single file through the S's and try and slingshot towards the Melbourne hairpin as we catch a race replay here. This is Ted Edwards on Manzo. Just break that a little bit too late on the outside line. Couldn't scrub the speed off and helped himself a bit to Yao Manzo's kind of splitter to help him slow down into Redgate. Kind of, I would say no harm, no foul, but there was certainly ground lost as Van Kampen has a sniff up the inside of Lilith. Now Manzo sees what's going on. He's going to get the better momentum down in towards the Melbourne hairpin. Can they set themselves up this time? 3 wide, the gap closes. Manzo goes for the gap disappears. Up the inside goes Manzo on Van Kampen. It's a straight drag race now down to Goddard's. It's getting very, very close indeed. Van Kampen still with the overlap, slams on the brakes, but it's too late. Everybody stacked up into Goddard's. Grim Lilith takes a hit. Van Kampen, we've got Ted Edwards, Nicole Fox out of nowhere. Callum has got involved in this one, and Yao Manzo now really the biggest loser of the fight. That's detrimental time loss. Lost the back of the pack completely. Ted Edwards sizing up Stephen Van Kampen. It's more contact going down into Redgate. Nicole Fox says, thank you very much. I'll have another position from you guys. Keep fighting because this has turned my race to the better. Nicole Fox now finds themselves inside the top 10 in P9. Nicole Fox, where has she come from? You know, we didn't see Fox at all during this latter half of the race, Callum, and suddenly involved in this fight, P9 overall for Fox, and could even capitalise on the back of Van Kampen, and Grim Lilith has escaped up the road and probably breathed a sigh of relief. Let's have a look what happened down into Goddard's, and broken record, Callum, a little bit too late on the brakes, and look what unfolded behind Grim.
Yeah, I mean, moment of silence, please, for our stewards today, and what a wonderful job they've been doing so far, but they've got to unpack that one, and what a job they'll have to do that. As we go on board with the race replay, I think this is the move here from Ted onto Van Kampen, just squeezed a little bit, two cars trying to go into one line there, hitting the side, and that was Nicole Fox's opportunity there, saying thank you very much, I'll have a few places. Currently sitting in P9, probably sneakily hoping Van Kampen catches up with Grim again. Bit of a rinse repeat so she can gain another few spots. She's absolutely loving this, sat there, bided her time and capitalised when it mattered. These cars have been delivering today. This has been incredible to watch, and 5 minutes left. There's a there's still plenty more to come. It seems a little bit spread out now, but all we need is one person to make a mistake, and all of a sudden we could be going 2 by 2 again, 3 wide again into the Melbourne hairpin. Absolute carnage has ensued. Oh, Jesse Lee reminded me of someone who's in the race. Christopher Strapen, currently 15 seconds, just chilling in the lead. Nice Monday drive for him. 15 seconds ahead of Philip Brasher, who dominated the last race. This has been absolutely incredible here from Verstappen. Harman 7 seconds behind, followed by Boardman another 7 seconds, and Martin Lawrence. What we didn't see is him getting past Emil Plata. A phenomenal race from him, obviously capitalised well in the pit stops and utilised that to climb up to P5. A phenomenal result here, seeing if he doubt he can get 7 seconds on Boardman, but chasing nonetheless as best as he can. Emil Plata, he had a phenomenal second race, well, and a first and second race at Snetterton. Another phenomenal performance here today to bring that Lamborghini in P5, and we get back on board with our favourite, well, now six-man squad, and Nicole Fox. Incredible racing. As Nicole just going a little bit wide there, Ted lipping his Mustang, as we've seen a few times on the inside, trying to displace Nicole, but Nicole calm as ever, thinking, it's only a Mustang, I'm not too scared of this, I know I've got the traction, just got to defend on the straights, and she's doing a phenomenal job.
Yeah, great job from Nicole Fox. Kind of, if you want a definition of playing the long game, that is, you know, certainly one to cast your eye back on. Of course, Ted Edwards still within earshot, though, of the 314 Porsche.
Penalty for Ted.
Of course. Oh, well spotted there. That's a penalty for Ted Edwards, of course, 5 seconds. So that logically would shuffle him down just ahead of Ollie Mulder. And there's a mistake there from McLean's, and that's going to allow Tom Shipston through straight away. There's a hip and shoulder. Ted is not giving this up. Shipston gets turned into the gravel, and very clumsy moves, I would say, there from, I don't know, I want to say both drivers, maybe, but again, the momentum was lost. Let's have a race replay. Ted, of course, out over the painted surface, loses traction. Shipston sees the outside. There's 2 touches, and I'd say Shipston kept it as straight as he could, given where the Mustang was parked on the circuit, but I will leave that one up to the official stewards, of course, that we do have along with us tonight. And a big thank you to them for working alongside us, of course, providing you some fantastic kind of decisions that luckily me and you, Callum, don't have to make. Of course, we're on the let's say the easier side of tonight's antics, and some calls, of course, a little bit too hard to make a final decision on, but they do a fantastic job either way. As we see a few more late things coming in, the 115 and the 35 was a warning for the 35, avoidable contact. Of course, the 222, the 8, the 35, and the 15, that was down into turn 11. That's, of course, from the major incident we saw into the last corner, of Cordards, I believe. Of course, the 222 checks up because of the incident with the 115 and the 35. The 8 has unavoidable contact, with the 222, and that was, of course, the big one. The 5 seconds came from lap 33, turn 1, involving the 222 and the 8. That's a 5 seconds for the number 8. That was, of course, when Ted Edwards went into the back of Yao Manzo into Redgate, and that's the 5-second penalty there. So Ted's going to be shuffled down a few positions once the checkered flag has dropped. Meanwhile, side by side into the S's, there's a little bit of a rub between Van Kampen and Lilith. Lilith elbows out completely, not giving up the position to the Mustang. The grunt of the Ford surely will pull it down into the Melbourne hairpin, but of course Nicole Fox in the background still rubbing their hands with glee, looking forward to 2 cars going side by side again, because that could equal another position gained for them. Just trying to work out where your race leader is. Oh, there's contact there. Grim Lilith on Van Kampen, and Nicole Fox gets a snout up the inside of them. Almost gets the overlap to get down into Redgate, but not this time, unfortunately. Van Kampen on the defensive, though, from Grim Lilith. This is going to come down to the wire. Fox getting very close to the back of Grim Lilith. The Porsche certainly looking very racy. This has now become a 3-way fight for what is essentially P7. This isn't even anything too major at the moment, as Van Kampen checks up for the old hairpin. Be careful of running wide. We've seen far too many drivers do it tonight, and Christopher Strapen will cross the line to begin his final lap with 15 seconds to go. Of course, not close enough to slow up and get the timer ticked over. So one more time will go. Fingers crossed, everybody has timed their fuel to perfection. Riding on board, of course, with Nicole Fox's car, front row seats to the fight ahead. You can see everybody scrabbling for traction as they come out of the turn 8, of course, down towards the S's. Every single driver ahead, the Mustang, the Audi, and the Porsche, all wrestling for traction. All Pirellis not going to be in the best state of affairs. You can see the wheel being sawed at as they come through the S's, and I think the gaps have opened up just about enough at the moment. Van Kampen still feels the need to go defensive, and Grim manages to get a brief overlap through the Melbourne hairpin, but the power of the Mustang will pull itself off the corner down towards Goddard's, the last of the late breakers. Of course, Van Kampen going defensive into every corner. This is going to come down to the last lap. There's a big slide from Van Kampen. He's really scrabbling for traction, and so is Grim Lilith, and so is the Porsche. This is going to come down to the wire, Callum.
Down to the wire indeed. My eyes are fixated on this battle for P7. Van Kampen currently leading. Grim Lilith, Nicole Fox, and Yao Manso back to come and play for this one. All of them just waiting for the mistake to happen, trying to force the mistake, dipping a nose in. This is incredible racing as Nicole Fox makes a mistake, but I think keeps the momentum, might be able to hold off Yao Manso into McLean's. They've also coming up to some blue flag traffic in Ibiza Racer, so they've got to navigate that as well as try to get past each other. It's all to play for here on the last lap, and well, as we got excited for that, we completely forgot we forgot him all race, haven't we? Christopher Straper, a commanding win. Philip Brasher coming through in P2. Benjamin Harmon almost looks like he's mid-battle pack, but he's actually just lapping some traffic there for an incredible result into P3. You've got Boardman there in P4, so we go back onto this train for P7. Yao Manso trying to make the move on Nicole Fox. Is not going to go for it here into the Melbourne hairpin. Might make a move into McLean's. It looks like Ibiza Racer did pull over and let these four through. John, you can see it through the last corner. I'm losing my breath here.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic fighting from all involved. Van Kampen still a little bit late into Goddard's. It's going to be the run to the line. I think they've done just enough to fend off Grim Lilith. Of course, Nicole Fox comes through as well as Yao Manso. Ted Edwards with a DT. Very well spotted indeed. I've not got any official word from the stewards on that one yet, so that could potentially be a corner cut. Maybe. I wouldn't say all too much, but Ted Edwards letting Yao Manso go through, and I'm not too sure what the DT was for. I've got no official word from the stewards. Of course, that will be converted into a 40-second time penalty. That will, of course, adjust the results. Of course, results are subject to any further stewards inquiries that are going on at the moment. Of course, they are all still live at the moment. We'll try and bring you all the updates we can if we're still on the air. But Christopher Streppen, as we said, to the front he went, galloped away, and 19 seconds to the good on Philip Braister. It was ironically 30 seconds to the good on Benjamin Heilman. No, sorry, I'm reading completely wrong intervals here on that one. 19 seconds to Philip Braister, and then 10 seconds just over to Heilman. Of course, Andy Boardman just behind, within earshot of Heilman should the mistake have been made. Martin Lawrence with a fantastic drive through the field for P5. Emo Plate, of course, another solid result from the Dutch Lamborghini driver, followed by Stephen Van Kampen, from Lilith, Nicole Fox, and Yao Manso that we all saw coming to blows. Of course, Tom Shipston, followed by Ollie Mulder, Les Stevenson, Richard Phillips, of course, Kevin Boss, Ted Edwards is where he finished down in P16 after the penalty. Richard Whittle, P17, Martin Foster, P18, Mike Redford, 19th, Kenneth Dow in 20th, Teixeira 21st, Ibiza Racer 22nd, and Keith Whittle in 23rd. Aaron Jackson, Trevor Byford, Badowski decided to call it a day, and Theobald Roskam, I don't even think made the start on tonight's race. All didn't take the flag. So 23 cars finished out of those that started. So that will be a good shuffle in the championship standings. If you remember, some 30 plus drivers all scoring on the board so far. Of course, if you joined us here tonight, we'd like to say a big thank you to you guys. Of course, not only do you make this journey possible, but again, none of it would be possible without you. And of course, without the live stewards next door to us, and myself and Callum, very thankful for the efforts that they do. Of course, some exciting things coming up on RCI. We didn't have time to touch on this on the very short formation lap that we had, of course, tonight. But there was a big announcement in the RCI Discord. To those of you that did see it, of course, the RCI 6-hour series is making a comeback with, again, the esports leg and the community leg. So 2 different splits you can get involved in. One is competing for cash prize. That's going to be an €8,000 prize pool as it stands currently. And of course, the community leg, for the first time in RCI history, will feature some prizes. And that's all thanks to our title sponsor, IMB Racewear. So the top 3 place teams are going to be getting their hands on some prizes. You can find all the information over on the website. That's racerci.com. And alongside that, we're also going to be giving away one £20 IMB Racewear gift card per race to a lucky team. That's across any split, and that gives you 6 chances to win, regardless of what split you're in, and the only criteria being that you have to finish the race. So it's a little incentive there for those of you that don't get off to the best start to, of course, stick around, see what you can claw back, and of course see if you can get your hands on that IMB Racewear gift card. Of course, all the information you can find over on the website for that one. That's racerci.com. Sign-ups are, of course, open till August 30th for both of those, so be sure to get your name down to not miss out on that one. And speaking of sign-ups, of course, sign-ups are still open for the Nürburgring Nordschleife 6 Hours Part 2. This time we're taking GT3, GT4 and TCX cars to the Nordschleife for 6 hours of multi-class madness. Teams will be between 1 and 4 drivers, practice and qualifying in a separate server with no stint timer to also open up the strategy. Featuring BOP for both GT3 and GT4, this should of course bring the field that little bit closer together, making every car viable with one another. Sign-ups are filling up quite fast. There's still plenty of space in the TCX category, so if you do want to get involved in the M2, then be sure to throw your name forwards for that one. Of course, remember, down below you can find all of our partners' information. They've, of course, been revolving around in the bottom left-hand side of your screen. Of course, AK Esports, a top provider of premium esports services and equipment. Of course, they also provide everything from, of course, high-performance hardware to expert coaching, event management, and, of course, our service solutions here at RCI. So be sure to check them out down below if you believe they can help you at all. Of course, Go Setups. Again, have been with us for a little while now. They provide expertly crafted car setups tailored to help you get the most out of your racing experience in titles such as Assetto Corsa and Assetto Corsa Competizione. Featuring, of course, a plethora of esports stars on their team, you can be sure the setup you choose has extensive powers behind it. And, of course, 2 new partners for us here at RCI. Very recently, we are thrilled to, of course, partner with Moser Racing, a leader in high-quality sim racing gear. From precision-engineered steering wheels to durable pedals and advanced wheel bases, Moser Racing has everything you need to boost your racing experience. And be sure to support, of course, RCI using our affiliate link down below if you are planning to pick up any new hardware this year. And of course, lastly but no means least, Motorsport UK Esports, where we have also become a recommended community, which is quite a big feat in the world of Motorsport UK Esports. Of course, they are the digital racing division of Motorsport UK, who are the governing body for motorsport. They organise and sanction official sim racing championships, promoting high standards and governance in esports. By engaging with the racing community and offering development pathways, Motorsport UK Esports helps sim racers progress in their careers, potentially even leading to real-world racing opportunities. And of course, collaborating with various industry stakeholders to host events and of course promote growth in sim racing, which they did, of course, by hosting the UK leg of the FIA Games qualifiers. So again, that's happening in October, for those of you that want to mark that one on your calendar. But Callum, it's been fantastic here tonight. We've seen some great racing across the board, and I believe we do have an interview with someone that you might know quite well.
We do have an interview indeed, and that is with Mr. Slurpinson, Les Slurpinson himself. How was your race, Les?
Thank you for that great introduction there, guys. Yeah, it was a race of just keep going. Just keep going. It was that lovely, as Jesse calls it, that, light, heavy, medium, rain, damp conditions, very moist, at occasions a lot drier than I thought it was going to be, and I discovered TC2 very late on, where I was able to actually use it to great advantage and managed to get past Mr. Phillips in the end, with a great little battle. But yeah, no, P13. So I had a great battle with Martin Lawrence as well. That was something I'm going to keep in the memory for a while.
Yeah, that was something we really enjoyed in the comms box watching earlier on in the race. Going to TC2 and the tyres in general, I theorised that almost everyone was going to be taking tyres this race because it's those conditions where the wets are just not having a good time. How was it managing the tyres across that race, and did you take tyres on your stint?
I did take tyres, and I am glad I took tyres because towards the end of my first stint it was becoming very obvious that the rears were very limited, and I mean all the practice I'd done was in very wet conditions, so it was nothing like tonight's conditions, which is just, you know, sod's law. And but no, it was I did take tyres, and I'm glad I did. And like I said, discovering the lower TC really helped me, but unfortunately I just lowered it too far into the race. But you know, it is what it is. We learned from it, and like I said, I had a great couple of battles, and it was a quite, what I could see, it was quite a relatively clean race.
Yeah, well, it was relatively clean, and if you watch the broadcast back, it was an incredible race to be commentating on, so definitely one for yourself and anyone listening to, if they haven't caught it already, to watch back. John, do you have anything for Les at all?
No, just want to say well done, Les. You know, in tricky conditions tonight, you really held on to it well, and I think we said, like, you and Lawrence, that's not a battle we were expecting to ever see on RCI TV, so it just shows, you know, what a curveball the weather can provide in these races.
Yeah, well, I pretty much had to pinch myself. I even checked to make sure I had my cool bag next to me. You know, it was just, I just couldn't quite believe I was battling with Mr. Lawrence, but you know, it was good fun, good gentleman race. You know, plenty of room, and I'd like to think he feels the same. And yeah, that was good. And the same with you know, Richard Phillips, which, you know, I've had many battles with Richard Phillips over the years, and as always, great respect and great clean racing. But yeah, thoroughly enjoyed myself.
Yeah, good stuff there from Les. Thank you very much for dropping in. I believe we also have Kevin Boss coming in for an interview as well. Kevin, of course, welcome to the booth. Your race didn't get towards the best start, should we say, by the time we got to the top of the hill.
No, I just had to get out the way going into McLean's, and that put me on the back foot. And I was fighting some guys that I had a much higher pace on, and made a little oopsie trying to get past going 3 wide into the Melbourne hairpin. So maybe not the best of decisions, but yeah, I got punished for it. But yeah, still getting P15, decent result.
Yeah, still a solid result there. Of course, I was going to touch on it, but yeah, quite some hard battles being fought across the grid. Callum, anything for Kevin while we've got him here?
Not much from me. Just, you know, extending a brilliant race there for Kev. You know, he had a few incidences, but to claw back to P15 is an absolutely brilliant result. So a massive well done. Is there anyone you want to shout out today?
Oh yeah, once again, everyone in the VC. There was Les, Ted, Grim, Aaron was there as well. So it's always fun. Like I said on Saturday, it's always fun to have people just bantering a bit, and like you can give each other also some information. Like there was a pile up in Goddard at one point, so it's like, okay, get ready, we might, you know, see that happening. So yeah, that's all good. It's just a shame with my bad start and if I took a penalty, because otherwise I would have been fighting Les and Richard Phillips.
All right, as well. Thank you very much, Kevin, and we look forward to seeing you at Brands as we have another person in for an interview, Mr. Ted Edwards. Ted, I just have one question for you. That entire second stint, discuss.
Pain. I didn't have any tyres. I had no tyre pressures, so I was just sliding everywhere and sliding into people apparently.
Did you take tyres? So I theorised that almost everyone would be taking them, but I wasn't 100% sure. It seemed like there was a mixed bag of pace out there today.
Yeah, very mixed. I don't think Manso took tyres. I think me and Grim did because we came out near each other. Manso was ahead, and obviously Martin Lawrence, he took tyres, so he flew past us. But I took tyres, but I lowered them because they were like a little bit over the 30 psi, and they decided to go to 29.2 at one point. So that was not fun because you can't brake in a Mustang with under pressure tyres, as I found out.
Yeah, and already trying to tame the Mustang in wet weathers is hard enough, let alone with the incorrect tyre pressures. Anything from you, John?
No, just want to say, fantastic scenes on our screens tonight. Some real hard racing, and just really unfortunate it kind of all came undone in the end there for you, Ted.
Yeah, it's a shame, but I think I've just got the Donington curse now, because the first Donington here this season didn't go well. I turned into a helicopter, and this one just picked up penalties, so just have to see how Brands goes.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Looking forward to Brands. Of course, the final round next week, where the championship will rear its head. And at the same time, of course, this week, Saturday, Night Owl also rearing its head as they head to their final round at the Nürburgring GP. That will, of course, be the next time you can catch us here on RCI TV. So be sure to stay tuned to the YouTube sub box. We always put up a little stream preview before we do, of course, go live on the day. So you can get your calendar in order and make sure you're at home ready for some fantastic racing action. Again, if you want to get involved with anything that the drivers we've interviewed tonight have just said, of course, Les Stevenson touching on the fact he's raced Richard Phillips for a good few years in the community, and you want to build your own rivalry with some of the drivers tonight, be sure to head on over to the website racerci.com, where you can, of course, get signed up for any of our events, day or night. Of course, late sign up for Brands Hatch is still an option for next week, and again, you can enter yourself into the last round of Saturday Night Owl for fun if you do feel so. Sign-ups also open for the Nürburgring Nordschleife 6 hours. That's this week, I believe, on Saturday. And, of course, a big announcement came last week in the form of the 6-hour series making its comeback at RCI with an esports and a community leg. So, again, be sure to get your names down for that one, because I can assure you that will fill up very fast indeed. Pre-qualifying, of course, is a thing in the 6-hour series. So, again, leave yourself plenty of time to get your laps done. But it's been a fantastic stream tonight. We've seen some great racing action, and if you are joining us late, be sure to watch this one back, because I'm sure you will not regret it at all. So from myself, John Dalton, your lead commentator, from Callum Kerrigan alongside me, from Jesse Lee, bringing you all the action from behind the cameras, and of course not forgetting our live stewards. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope you had a wonderful evening with us here on RCI TV, and we look forward to seeing you on Saturday for the final round of Night Owl. Take care.